Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Siege and Sarwick. How you doing, Siege?
Brr, it's cold in here.
It is very cold. I didn't want to bring it up because I can't imagine it's colder where I am than it is where you are, being in the
Well,
mountains of Utah.
we also had a technological failure in the house last night that went a little unnoticed because we were all fast asleep.
Oh, God, did your pilot light go out? Or, how'd your heat work over there?
No, we have a thermostat that we don't love. It was a digital one put in when digital was, cool and new, but now it's extremely old digital. And so, funny enough, if it runs out of battery, just a couple of AAAs, apparently it just turns the whole system off instead of maintaining, whatever it's at. Which is whatever. They gave
terrible.
no warning. There's a battery symbol on it, but if you're not looking at it, then who the hell is just staring at their thermostat all day? Anyway,
I would
went
probably
out.
check it before
He turned
going
off.
to bed every night now, at least in the winter.
Yeah. Woke up to a couple of popsicles. It was great.
Well, I'm just cold because it's cold. I mean, it is very icy here because the snow turned to rain while it was still, below freezing. So we have a lovely sheet of ice in the backyard. Ice cold.
I understand the need for taking the first step. There has to be first buyers. There has to be for early adopters, right? You need that for technology to survive. But there's just some stuff that I just would not buy in early on, right? We don't own this house, and definitely didn't when this was put in. But this is not a system I would have bought into if at the time it was offered to me. Give me a good old fashioned little dial. Nowadays, you get those the Google Nest setups and shit like that. I a lot more on board with because there's a lot of the faults have been worked out at this point.
Yeah. I had a friend who was an early adopter of the Nest stuff, and it was clearly past the you have to put in batteries in order to run this system time. But I always thought, this seems early. This seems too early to, jump in on stuff. And he rented, too. He never owned any of the places. So he rented these places, and he would upgrade, and then, the house, he lived outside of Northampton, Massachusetts. That's the closest I can think. I think it was Amherst, technically, where his house was located. And I remember it was this beautiful house. It was very reminiscent of the farmhouse from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. And nice. Beautiful, but then all of it was old and rustic. And then he had basically the HAL 9000 as his thermostat. It did not match the rest of the aesthetic of the house. And I'm like, oh, they put that in? He's like, no, I put that in. And I'm like, you don't own this house, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
Would you, I know one of the, Siege and upgrade that as somebody who only rents there? Is that something you would take upon yourself?
One of the things that we're considering is doing a Nest upgrade because I don't know about early on, but I know now one of their big selling points is that they're plug and play install essentially. Mm-hmm. So there's this idea that we could just uninstall it and bring it with us without much hassle. So nice. Buying it for us to just kind of have with us might be the move, but then we need to talk about what's worth the work in the house and all that for sure. We there's some things that we are going to get updated. Part of it is that we have this conversation all the time. I did not know I'd be living in Utah this long, and anybody that's followed this show since the beginning knows that I had never talked about it until it happened, and when it happened, it was a surprise to all of us. So there was also just that element of it. But then, our plans to move out of this place got kind of thrown up in the air when the entire world went askew,
shut down, when the world shut down for a while.
Yeah. So things have gotten you make a plan, and if there was a God, he'd laugh.
Right? I mean, how do you make God laugh? You make a plan. That's a good one.
Yeah.
We're not going to watch Kicking and Screaming,
we're doing good
though,
now, warm and toasty as of officially 6:30 this morning when somebody woke up and went, oh, it's fucking cold.
Man, I mean, again, I'm cold, so I get it. Let's not talk about the weather anymore, though. This is a good 5 minutes on weather, and also a good, note to people, check your thermostats. I did not know. That seems so backwards to me, that your, thermostat thing would require a secondary power source.
Well, what's crazy is that, rules and regulations for rentals, fire detectors need to have
smoke
backup
detectors?
connection wired into the house.
Yeah.
Smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide. Part of the deal out here, I don't know if this is true everywhere, but in addition to having a battery they have to have a hardwire backup so that if the battery isn't working, they can at least perform like minimum functions. And like this idea that that was not also something required for the thermostat, because like, what if we hadn't been home?
Yeah, exactly.
Technology,
That
man.
would have been really bad.
Like,
You could have frozen your pipe,
little
all
helpful,
sorts
but
of stuff there. That just
yeah, just scary shit, man. But luckily we were home when we caught it this time. But man, tech can freak you out.
So I have to apologize, like just at the beginning of this whole thing. I know that we've been talking about thermostats and everything, but a couple of apologies. First of all, I said that we did our 50th episode of the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe podcast, just released on Friday. It's out there. You can listen to it. It's on the Deuce Bigelow movie, so buyer beware. I said it was our 50th episode, and while it is our 50th piece of content. I don't know why 50th is the hardest word for me to say today. It is our 50th piece of content over there. It is technically only our 49th episode. So I jumped the gun a little bit there. Apologies. But the reason is that, you know, where we host the podcast tells me how many things I have on our podcast feed. So because we have that mission, like, what did we call it? It's like a trailer for the show, basically, where we establish what our missions and goals were with the Adam Sandler Cinematic Universe podcast. Like, it counts that as a piece of media. So that's where 4950 gets screwed up.
Did we not post, and also is it still up, a strike episode?
Yeah, we have a strike episode up as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so like 2 of those are not full episodes?
Yeah, well, I mean, so neither is like the Hanukkah update. Like, we called them special episodes over there. We talk about it in our State of the Adam Sandler Union, that we have 4 episodes that technically don't count. But also, I don't consider like your teaser trailer episode. I always call that episode 0 because it's like a session 0. It's not really an episode. If you never listen to it, you wouldn't be like left out in the cold. Because
right, no, format's completely different. It's all entirely...
Yeah, it's to try to get people to like listen to the show. It's a trailer. It's exactly that's what it's called there. But that being said, this, looking at the same podcast host site that we use, this is the 500th piece of Say Report media that we're putting out into the world, between all of our very special episodes and our mini reviews and something like episode 52 we posted in 2 different versions, one with, one without the backing track of our first episode, because I was like, let's do that. That'll be a fun way to celebrate a year of the Say Report, is to talk over the first episode in a commentary track. I mean, it works, right? Like, we do commentary track episodes, too. We haven't done one of those in a while. We should probably...
Still one of my favorite bits that we have ever done, I gotta be honest. Us commentating our own episode. I know that it was funny probably for only and only me, but it is still funny to me.
It was funny to me, too, and I hope that people enjoy it. But if it was distracting to hear us twice, we did release it. So, like, it's 500, and there's some fudging and fidging over there. And also, we have... like a time capsule episode that nobody has heard yet. It's not a lost episode. It's just the one that's in the bank. And it is the most time capsule of time capsule episodes.
The longer we hold on to it, the more...
the weirder it becomes. And I like it. I'm really proud of ourselves that we have that episode. And I'm excited to launch it on the world and see what happens. But yeah, so that I wanted to address that. But then in addressing that, there is also the fact that this is the 500th Say Report thing. And that's kind of cool. When you like take a step back and look at it. It's not our 500th episode. In fact, we're going to do a 450th episode before we do a 500th episode. But, you know, it's a big round number, and big round numbers are kind of fun, right, to talk about. Also, we totally, because I screwed up the name of the other team in the Super Bowl, totally called who won the Super Bowl, right? High five. Hope so. Nobody could have bet based upon my prediction because we didn't release it till after the show, but it's a thing. How was your
apparently
Super Bowl?
The Chiefs listened to our show, and when you told them the Cardinals were in it, they were just like, oh, I guess it's not us guys, because they sure as fuck didn't show up.
Boom. I thought it was nice that the Eagles let them score 20 points in the fourth quarter so that they would.
Well, you know, by that point, that's when they have the water boy out there just to give them some time on the field during the Super Bowl.
The craziest thing about the Super Bowl I mean, I think we should talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. It happened. Plus, it's always fun to, like, tempt fate, and maybe we're going to get sued for saying Super Bowl. I think they just tell us to take it down, and honestly, I would just go, whoop, every time there's a Super Bowl. I could do that. I have that power. The best part about it is there were 3 minutes on the clock when they did the Gatorade bath of the coach. That is a level of cocky that and I'm a confident guy. I don't know if I would do that. I think I respect sport and competition too much.
We are talking about the
Eagles,
right?
And we're talking about Philadelphia, right? Their fans are bad. Imagine their players. No, much love to Philadelphia. I've mentioned it a bunch of times, but it was one of those things where, as just a competitor, right? Like I grew up playing hockey. I have all this competitive nature in me. Like, you finish the game before you celebrate. I know you may be up like that, but it's just a decorum. And that was the one thing. It was funny, but then it was also like, I don't know. If I were one of these sports reporters, guys, like, I could just hear Michael Wilbon on part of the interruption being like, "You don't do it, Tone. You finished the game."
They did almost kind of fucking with it, because it was after that where the points started getting scored, right?
Some points had already been scored. It was one of those situations where their lead was so significant that it was kind of faster to, like, let's just let the Chiefs score. And then we'll have the ball back.
Let's run this clock down, right?
And then we can be in control of the clock. It was a weird Super Bowl. I don't think, did you see any commercials that excited you, Sajin?
No, let's be clear. I did not invest in the Super Bowl this year. Look,
happy.
I have a real anti. I don't know how to talk about this. I don't love the ways that people talk about superstition in sports in general. It can get kind of silly sometimes, because for me it's always kind of cute and like a heartwarming part of the whole bit. But then for them it's like, no, this is their religion. And the amount of shit that has gone on over the last year about the Chiefs, because I mean, to be blunt, because of the Taylor Swift of it all, like, and I don't blame her. This is not me being angry at her like everybody else is. This is me being like, everybody else needs to cool their fucking shit. But the amount of times I've read posts or heard somebody say that the only reason the Chiefs are getting this kind of favoritism from the refs is because of the whole, like, it's good for the NFL for Taylor Swift to be at the game, and so if they can get her through the playoffs and to a Super Bowl, then that means they're going to get all these viewers and all this shit. And it was the big conspiracy this year. And the problem is that with the way that the Chiefs just played, they have really loaded that ammo up for a lot of people. Like, there are a lot of people that are like, we told you all that they were getting favorited by the refs all season, that there's something weird going on and they didn't belong there and all this, and the way that they played. Oof. But also remember, this is like the third time the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl in the last like 5 years, right?
It's the third time they've been in the Super Bowl in 3 years.
Oh, that's true. It's in a row.
They were going for their three-peat.
Yeah, so I mean, like, the amount of people that were just going into this game being like, the Chiefs don't belong here, the Chiefs don't belong here, the Chiefs don't belong here. And that's fine. Like, it's such a weird such a weird investment in, like, the kayfabe of football that I don't dig. And the ways that people were getting about it was just gross this year. And then after seeing what happened at the game, I was very confident I had made the right decision in not investing, because now everybody's just like, see, we told you. And that sucks, because, like, that, I think what happened was awful, and, like, the Chiefs really need to re-examine some shit about the ways that they played in that game. But I don't think it's because there was some grand conspiracy to make sure. You know, we heard the same shit when we were in high school with, like, the Patriots after 9/11, and it was like the Patriots. Was it the Patriots and the Eagles?
Where they were just like,
it was the two Patriots, American teams got in.
I don't know. No, they beat the Rams. The first Super Bowl was over the Rams, because, like, it was Kurt. What's his name? See, that's a problem. I feel bad that I can't. Kurt Warner.
There's definitely these kinds of things at the time where it was like, oh, they're favoring the Patriots because of what's going on in the country right now.
I mean, there was that big thing about the Yankees in 2001. They are being favored because of what happened on 9/11,
right? Which
is gross. So, like that's shit, like just a gross thing to, like, yeah, that's it, right? They're only winning ball games because a bunch of people had to die in a terrorist attack. Think about
also
what you're
doesn't
saying.
Explain the Mets,
like. Yeah, Poor the Mets. I have a lot of Mets fan friends, and I just don't like to talk about them because I don't want to lose them as friends. They mean a lot to me. But like season ticket holder Mets fans, and I'm like, oh, I think, yeah. I mean, I hate the Yankees, right? As a Red Sox guy living in Red Sox Nation, but I don't know. Even I feel kind of bad for the Mets.
Yeah, don't engage me if this is the kind of way in which you engage sports. That's not.
Yeah.
You're not the kind of fan I want to spend time with while this happens.
Well, I mean, one of the other reasons that we're talking about the Super Bowl, I was wrong. Kelsey was on that team that won the Super Bowl like 2 years before the try for the three-peat. The fact of the matter was he just wasn't the social media darling, right? There was a slash in there because he wasn't dating Taylor Swift at the time. So, like, I had never heard his name, but he has 3 rings. And so does Mahomes from that game. This was going for their 4th ring and the three-peat, and they did not do it. And honestly, if you're going to talk about the kayfabe and the superstition and everything, have you seen what is without a doubt my favorite Hallmark movie?
I don't know which one you're talking about.
It is called Holiday Touchdown, a Chiefs Love Story.
Oh my, yes. Oh my God. I have not seen it. I am aware of this one. Again, avoided it because I like this whole season, this whole year, this whole thing. And that one popped up in the rotation this year because of everything with Taylor Swift and Kels, and I just had no interest. I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
I highly recommend it. In fact, I might force you to watch it for Christmas this coming year because it's not going to be relevant anymore with how everything went for the Chiefs. But it is a film that I accidentally saw. It premiered Saturday, November 30th, and I had been out visiting my friends up in Massachusetts, and I got home around like 11 o'clock, and I wasn't tired because I had just had this wonderful day with my friends. I'm full of vim and vigor and energy. Everything is coming up Devin, and I'm like, man, I just gotta calm down. And on the TV is this show, and I don't realize it's like the brand new, gonna be the hotness Hallmark movie. And I watch it beginning to end, not knowing that it's new because the central plot line is about the Chiefs winning their conference championship. Like, that's right. All it about. It's not about the Super Bowl. It's just about them getting to the playoffs and then winning the conference championship. So that could have been, as they were just going for their three-peat, a movie that came out 2 years ago or 3 years ago based upon everything. And you want to talk about superstition. The whole thing is that they run a Chiefs memorabilia shop. The story is crazy, and I don't want to tell the story here because I kind of want to save it for it, but I'm going to do it.
I mean, it's a little bit, it's in the same vein as like a fever pitch, right? Like their relationship is somehow tied to how well the team is doing.
No, not at all.
Okay.
It is the kids. Like so they are, because of this memorabilia shop, there's a chance that the fan engagement team of the Chiefs is going to name them the Fans of the Year. And if the store is named Fans of the Year, then this whole thing's going to happen where we'll finally get the business, that we won't have to worry about the shop closing and all this.
I somehow forgot we were talking about a Hallmark movie and how insane the plot line would have to actually be.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the truly insane part. So she enters them under cover of darkness. This Hunter King, Joey King's sister, is the main lead of this movie. Also talking about Taylor Swift connections, right? Because she's the little girl in the Mean video. And she enters the family under cover of darkness, like they don't know. And then they find out that it's going to happen. But then she has a bad interaction with the guy from Fan Engagement when he comes in as a secret shopper before they're like named as one of the 3 finalists. And then they find out that he is Fan Engagement when they're named. And she's like, oh my God, I screwed the family. We're going to shut down because I was mean to this guy. I didn't know who this guy was. But then he spends a day with them, right? And that's what they're supposed to do, right? Like the Fan Engagement goes and spends days. And the other one's like a Chiefs cat, like a cat that kind of looks like Andy Reid is one of them. I don't remember what the third person is, but it's ridiculous. Fantastic. Hallmark levels of this stuff. And then they tell the story that day they're together about the magic hat. and it's a magic hat that was given to them by a former Chiefs player or coach, because the grandparents have had season tickets to the Chiefs since like the 60s. And then that's how the mother and father of Hunter King met, was at Chiefs games, and they fell in love. And that's played by Megan Price and Diedrich Bader. It's got a hell of a cast, this movie. I loved the cast of this movie. But they tell the story about this magic hat, and that as long as someone in the family is wearing it on the day of the conference game, then they will win the AFC Conference Championship. Or the NFC. Yeah, they're the NFC. They'll win the NFC Conference Championship if they have this magic hat on. And then, like, the whole thing is like, but you can't put that story out there. We don't want that story to be known, because then everybody will blame us if we don't win, and then our shop will close down. Like, this is the for real storyline. And then they bring the hat out, because the hat story gets out anyway, and the hat is stolen. And then it's like, oh my God, they can't win the conference championship because we don't have the magic hat. And then, like you,
damn, Shelbyville came and stole our pig mascot.
Siegen's in the movie because the fan engagement guy's like, it's just a fucking hat. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? This superstition, it's fun and light and all of that, but like, it's just a fucking hat. That's like, it's not just a fucking hat. You remember that conference championship they lost? That's because we weren't wearing the hat, because Grandpa had a heart attack and we were at the hospital. And it's like, oh my God. And I love it. I love this movie, but I did not realize that it was going to be like the thing to talk about. When I came home and it was just on the television, I'm like, I got nothing better to do than watch this. And then on Christmas, the family was like, we're going to watch the Chief Love Story movie for Christmas. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm sitting there, and the whole time I'm like, man, this is very familiar. I feel like I've seen this. And then sure enough, like, the big thing happened, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way you put that in 2 movies.
Yeah.
So,
oh man,
yeah, it's a fun little
Never
ridiculous
change.
Hallmark movie. But you want to talk about, the kayfabe of the Chiefs are like written to be in the game, in the Super Bowl, and win it. Also, like the Angels in the outfield of it all is like, we can get them to the Super Bowl, but there's no magic that we can do to make them win the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, a lot of this comes from a lot of people that have some very strong opinions about the ways in which the NFL has kind of hitched its horse to the whole Taylor Swift-Kels relationship, right? And like, and because of that, there were just some people putting some real sharp edges on those comments this year that I just didn't care for.
Well, what about the reaction to them losing and like, oh, Taylor Swift's going to write a song about this? Because it's the saddest thing that's happened in her life since she started dating Travis Kelce. Well,
I also think that when people say Taylor Swift is going to write a song about this, what they're saying is she's going to break up with them, because that's this is not me saying this. This is the quote unquote like story of Taylor Swift, is that she dates a guy, breaks up with them, then writes a hit single about it. So not only is it the saddest thing in their relationship, it's also going to be the thing that makes them break up, is what people are saying when they say that. And that's gross. That is just like super doubly gross. Yeah, it is. But then also the fact of like, he's going to win the Super Bowl and then he's going to propose to her right there on the field. And it's like, yeah, don't fucking do that. Hi, Devin Decker here with a little PSA. Don't get engaged at someone else's wedding, and don't get engaged at the Super Bowl. Those events are more important than you asking the person you're dating to marry you. I'm sorry. You were trying to overshadow the event, and like, you shouldn't try to overshadow the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl. I could get sued just for saying Super Bowl. Or the other way to look at it, right? The other side of that coin is your engagement should be a special thing all unto itself.
Exactly.
Like, don't water down your own engagement by like making it part of this other thing.
Yeah, don't piggyback off of some other magic moment to have your magic moment. You're stealing magic, and there's rules and laws against that. I guess maybe. But I think those are the 2 things. I did want to make sure that I said that Kelce only had 3, won twice, but he's won 3 times. He was there. He just wasn't known yet. He was not dating Taylor Swift, which gives a weird like validation to the arguments that Siegen is presenting about it. But then also think about how the Chiefs have been the advertising team for such a long time. Andy Reid, like, give me get them nuggies. And it's just, it's weird. It's just a weird thing to do, to like hitch your wagon to one team. I respect, like, I had a friend who traveled and was watching regional commercials because Pepsi has that whole, like, there's nothing like Pepsi and the Patriots. If you're not in New England, it says there's nothing like Pepsi and the Giants. There's nothing like Pepsi and the Eagles. Like, that works for me. And that's it. Or there's nothing like Pepsi in football. Sometimes you'll see just the generic one if you're in a place that doesn't have a strong fan base. So that's the thing that they're able to do. But then when you're putting like Patrick Mahomes in your commercial to sell Nutter Butter, like he's in your commercial to sell Nutter Butter, because you're not getting all 31 other quarterbacks in to reshoot that commercial.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
right.
Yeah.
No, he's going to be the national face for this thing, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just like Peyton Manning was. And people didn't like that either. It's a weird thing. Say what you will about Tom Brady, and Lord knows you could. I could too. Since we've both met him in person. Say what you want about Tom Brady. He didn't really start trying to profit off of who he was until after he stopped playing football.
Yeah, no, he revealed himself to be the idiot he always was.
Yeah, exactly. The idiot that you and I both knew him to be from meeting him in person. Memories.
Oh man, yeah, no, I don't even believe, like, if you want to follow a team, that's fine. If you want to have some fun rivalry and some back and forth, that's great. But, you know, like, shit like we were seeing with, like, that guy that lost his shit and said a bunch of misogynistic stuff and then lost his, at the Eagles game, I think it was, and then lost his job the next day because they were like, we don't support this person behaving this way in public, like, basically. You know, like, that kind of shit, like, gross, too far. We've gone too far, clearly gone too far, right? Like, so like, remember that there's like, this is at the end of the day, like, I know it's the cheesiest fucking thing in the world, but like, remember that it's a game. Yeah. That the reason that we're playing a game is, I mean, the whole point of sports is that we were like, let's simulate war, but not with the death part. we could practice this idea of, like, you know, competition without having to be aiming to murder the other person. So like, if you start getting back to that point, you've gone too far.
Yeah, it's a good point. And you know what's really funny is I have said Super Bowl no less than 29 times, not even counting the times that you have said Super Bowl. You bringing up that guy who got thrown out of the Eagles game and, like, banned for life is more likely to get us in trouble, because the Eagles want you to remember that they won the Super Bowl. They don't want you to remember that one of their fans, who are known to go too far already, went further than that already moved line.
Jesus.
They want you to remember we won the Super Bowl. Let's not talk about any of the other stuff that happened with the Eagles this year. We won the Super Bowl. Where's our Hallmark movie?
Yeah. Don't worry, it'll come. There will be something this year that'll be very over the top Eagles, because they are now the Super Bowl champs, and maybe this is their time for the next couple of years to be the ones. But
I don't know. I would really like it if they were able to repeat. And that's just as a thing. Obviously, I don't really have any affiliations right now. All the teams I used to like to watch, it's football is hard for me. Really, the Super Bowl is the time where I get involved. That and kind of playoffs, right? When I can't watch like 8 games in a day like I used to do when I was younger. I just don't have the interest. And also, I really don't like, speaking about the things that kept you in Utah, or at least your place in Utah, longer than you were expecting, I didn't like the way that they reacted to that. I really did not like the way that the NFL responded to the pandemic. I'm going to say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's not the first time I've said it on the show. So I do not hitch my wagon to football the way that I did before. You know what I'm just remembering? I said I was going to look up the AMC A-list stubs thing. I completely forgot to do that. I'm apologizing for that right now. I will have the information for the next show. But I was very
curious, because I'm curious how it's not just MoviePass 2.0.
Well, the way that it's not MoviePass 2.0 is the fact that you come in as an A-list member. It's them. So what the it's weird because movie pass was paying for your tickets and they were paying full price for those tickets. So movie pass was definitively a good deal for the theaters because it cost the movie theaters absolutely nothing. MoviePass started and was like, we're going to get more people into your theater and we're going to buy their tickets at full price. We're going to shoulder that burden.
But they were like the third party, and I bet what they see. Okay, I never really understood that they were fully third party and all that. I thought it was just like this is like showcases or Cinemarks or somebody's like buy-in. So that's good to know because like in a weird way you can kind of see the hubris where the hubris comes from. Not that they shouldn't, they definitely died because of their hubris, but it like looking at the way that the world has let Ticketmaster get away with fucking murder, basically being that middleman in that kind of ticket engagement. Like you could see somebody coming behind and being like, we could do the same thing with movies, you know, and like it's gross and it failed thankfully because as a consumer that wouldn't have been good for us at all as it. But
as
thank
we
you,
stand,
you killed the beast.
It never, I'm good. But yeah, it never got to the step 2 because the step 1 would be we're buying these tickets for everybody. And then eventually, look how much business we're doing for you. Would you be willing to pay us, let us buy the tickets at a discount? And then the people are still paying us what they're paying. And then once they get that into effect, they raise the cost of subscription to MoviePass so that then they're suddenly making a profit.
And bottleneck the market and say, we are the place where you can get tickets, right? Oh, sorry, there's no more tickets available at the movie theater. You have to go through MoviePass to get them.
Yeah. So like that, there are ways that it could have gone. They luckily never escaped the loss section of that particular business model. Because the thing is, we're going to take it at a loss for a while. And then they doubled down on taking it for a loss when the former Netflix CEO took over MoviePass and was like, oh, I know we were charging $20 for the subscription. Now we are charging $10 for the subscription. And
let that be a lesson to anybody out there that wants to really lose their shit every time Netflix raises their price. They're not just doing it because they can. They're doing it because I think that they are running at the bare minimum there with a lot of shit.
Yeah. It is the biggest business model going right now is having valuation and then hiding your losses, right? Look how many subscribers Netflix has. You don't need to look at the fact that we haven't made money in 20 years. Look at the fact that we have 1.3 million subscribers.
Exactly. They've tied themselves to the good numbers. They're like, hey, in do we have any of this cash liquid? No, but technically we're worth $300 billion, right? It's like,
it's a flawed plan. And so I do want to look at this A-list and see with them giving you 4 movies a week if there are any restrictions with that. Because I got to tell you, if I could see, I really liked Captain America, I got nothing going on this Monday, I'll see Captain America again. Or that, or any of these other things where I can go see it again if I have the time. Because the way that the movie theater ones work is that there are unsold tickets to every movie that ever happens, right? There's just the thing. Very rarely does a movie sell out. So if you can have your A-list thing at AMC and essentially give away those tickets that wouldn't sell anyway, you're making money on something you wouldn't be making money before with the subscription method. Plus, all of the profits at the movie theater, say it with me, class, comes from concession sales. It's why you're paying $30 for a bag of popcorn that costs them, I'm going to say 30 cents. Popcorn is it's like coffee. Coffee is super cheap to make, and then you sell it for $5. You're making $4.95 profit on every cup of coffee.
Did you guys, speaking of movies that you should probably go see if you've got the tickets to do so, did you get one of them days in any of the theaters around you?
We did. I didn't get a chance to see it. I figured I would definitely watch it when it came to home. I do want to see it.
Yeah, I feel like it was in all of the theaters around me, but only for 1 or 2 showings in most of them. Actually, I think the Broadway Cinema downtown Salt Lake, which is the Salt Lake City Sundance like theater, like it is that kind of place. I think they were the only ones showing consistent viewings of it.
Yeah, I mean, we only have multiplexes in Rhode Island. I don't even think most of the single houses have closed. I mean, the Avon
Like
is
the
still
Avon
open,
and the
but the
Living
Avon is
What
really
was
more surviving on special engagements. Like they had Wicked a week early somehow. I don't know how. I'm sure they made some deal to
interesting.
do that, but
Yeah, what was the one that used to have all the couches?
the cable car. The cable car
Cable
closed
car.
before the pandemic.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah. No, cable car was closed years ago, but I only ever saw two things at the cable car, and one was a horror fest like shorts night because a friend of ours in undergrad had something in it, and so we all went at like midnight to go see some stuff, and that was actually pretty cool. And then the other one was a phenomenal documentary about Hunter S. Thompson. The problem is now it's pretty much unwatchable for me because it was produced and narrated by Johnny Depp,
well, there you
which at the
go.
time would make total sense, right? But like, ugh.
Yeah, a Justin Timberlake song came on, and I'm like, it's hard to hear him anymore. And not just because it ruined the tour, the world tour, but sort of the Britney Spears of it all. And yes, he was young too, but it hits the ear different now, and that's just a fact. Yeah, no, the cable car used to be where I would go see the Oscar short film presentations. And so that was really nice. And then the biggest, craziest thing I ever saw at the cable car was the movie Two Night Stand, starring Miles Teller, and I don't remember who the female
Is
lead
that the
was
one
in
where
that.
they do the one night stand, but then like a storm
Then a
comes in or some
snowstorm
shit?
happens, yeah.
Yeah.
We did it there, and at the time, Miles Teller was in Providence filming Bleed for this, so there was a chance he was going to show up at it, but most assuredly, the director was there to talk about the movie, and I was really excited to hear about that, but then the movie wasn't great, and I mean, like, there were bigger issues with the film, like the themes and things that were said. Like it didn't jive with me, and I'm like, I can't say anything to the director of this movie, even though here is my opportunity to say something to the director of this movie. That's not what tonight's going to become about. But it was one of those
That's a shame.
situations where, like, I have a lot of things to say about this movie, and it is one of those I'm just going to button up my mouth.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm going to be doing movie theaters much anymore, Dev, because I pulled the trigger on something this weekend, and it's officially set up and in the house already.
What's that, CJ?
I got myself a GMK Tech.
Oh,
I
look
grabbed
at you!
the Intel Twin Lake that you sent me the info on because, like, holy shit, it was such a good deal, and it is going already.
Which one is that? I know I sent you 3 of them. So of the 3,
That was the one that was. That's the one with the 16 gigabyte, 1 terabyte Go, right? The
Okay.
16 gigabyte RAM,
Yeah.
1 terabyte memory. I think. On
No,
it.
the
Yeah.
Twin Lake. So the little green one. Yeah, it's a good one. Or is
Yes.
it-
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've since moved on from the green one to the last one that I sent you, and then I also picked up a GMK Tech. They had just such good deals
They did. They
for
had some really good deals this
Chinese
week,
New
yeah.
Year, and so like, yeah,
And then it's set up like beautifully. It was one of the easiest setups I've ever done. And I was, this is my first time kind of jumping into this weirder setup, right? This is not a normal thing. Not everybody in the world has a PC hooked up to their TV to be run like an entertainment system more than a business device, right? Like
right.
I still come from that mindset that like I buy a computer because I have work to do. The fact that I can do fun stuff on it too is great and important to me. But the reason I'm buying this computer is because of school, is because of work, is because like I need to get my taxes done, something, right? So like computers are work machines to me. And so like because of that, like the money investment and what it needs to do and all of that is a big important conversation. This I think because I was literally just like I just want something that I can play some games on and watch some movies and then I like you and I were talking about it and you threw me a couple of suggestions and I was looking at it and studying it and after a couple of like hours of just like thinking about it I was just like no, well, why would I not do this, right? So like especially because like not to brag but I had gotten some Valentine's Amazon cash and things like that in hand and so I was just like all right, so like I could save myself a little bit of money and all that, plus the deal that they were doing for Chinese New Year was really good. So like I ordered it up, got here in less than a day. I don't know if you guys have the 12-hour delivery window option that Salt Lake does, because we've got like 3 different warehouses out here. But I actually was able to order it at like 10 o'clock at night on Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever we were talking about it, and then it was at my front door by 10 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah, that is, we do have that because we have a couple of Amazon distribution warehouses.
Yeah.
There's one in like Johnston, Rhode Island that is
So
now
in less
cooking,
than 24 hours after we talked about it, I had it in the house and set up.
I am doing one last hurrah on my Twin Lake before I install the actual gaming rated one that I purchased around the same time as you purchasing that. How is it so far working for you, though? Because I tried that one doing exactly what you're doing, putting it on my TV so it could become my media device, and it ended up running a lot of things slower than I had expected it. I was disappointed.
A couple of things are running a little bit slower. I think the display size is really kind of not doing it any favors. So I'm trying to like knock that down a little bit and find like the sweet spot of still looking good, but also, not as big as it could be. So there's definitely some of that going on. But my gaming when it comes to PC is not intense, right? Like I understand there are people out there that do like Apex and Overwatch and Path of Exile and all that shit, and like they need their gaming rig to be like spot on. I was playing Dome Keeper, right? And so like, yeah, it was a little hitchy in a couple of spots, but honestly, not that bad, and definitely not game breaking in any way. More than anything is the fucking updates to Dome Keeper I wasn't aware of that got me. There's a whole new like opening menu to that game, and I was completely lost for the first like 10 minutes because apparently I'm an old fucking man who can't play video games anymore.
I'm sorry to hear that, Siege.
Yeah, but anyway, when you're sitting around playing fucking Balatro on the thing, like it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, Balatro. That's where I played Balatro. Was on that little device. Yeah. That's where I got my first gold.
Like the real test on it is going to be if I try to do some Borderlands stuff on it, because I've got a Borderlands fam growing over here that I've been hanging out with, and so like we're talking about maybe diving into some Tiny Tina's because they haven't yet, and so I'm like super excited to introduce them to it. But I might try it on that, and if it doesn't go well, then I can always do the crossplay on the PS5. So nice. We're gonna see how that goes, though. But like I'm gonna put it through its paces, and if it can't do everything, it can't. The bigger reason I got it was honestly the movie stuff. Anyway, like being able to play my Steam games is always been something I could have done just by running a long HDMI, right? But if I wanted to have a dedicated device that I could actually like put movies on and keep movies at the ready and stuff like that, like that's the big thing for me, and now I've got that for right now.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's going to be part of my goals for 2025, but I am very, very interested in setting up my own Plex server and trying to back my stuff up and have it all at the ready that way. Especially like we talked about Norm Macdonald's show from ABC, and I would love to rip all that from the DVDs and then be able to share it with people, or just watch it on my own. I've been having a lot of fun going back and watching old shows that I enjoy. I am 2 seasons deep in My Name is Earl right now after finishing Raising Hope. And God, did I forget how much I liked My Name is Earl. And I'm really happy I got over myself because the first episode of the stream, the pilot episode, is the edited for syndication version. It is not the full version. And it bummed me out where I'm like, I don't want to watch this on Hulu. I don't want to play with you anymore. Because it like bothers me, and because you know what the biggest difference between it's not like How I Met Your Mother where like it's music choices and weird things like that. Do you know the difference between the original broadcast pilot of My Name is Earl and the syndicated one, and the one that was seen even in reruns, like ABC modified it too?
I would have assumed it was a soundtrack thing, but you're saying it's not that?
No, it is content. It is definitely content related.
No.
So when they go to Kenny's family's house to try to get his information, and Randy, it's 4-beer Randy, and he goes into the house and Catalina and Earl are alone in the car, Catalina makes a move on Earl. And Earl is like, no, I'm really like, thank you so much for that. I take it as a compliment, but Randy called dibs. So like he needs to take his shot before I do anything. And that whole sequence is just gone from every other version of the show. It's on the DVD, But any other broadcast version of My Name is Earl, including the streaming, which is just the syndication package that they license, come to find out, cuts out that scene where Catalina makes a move on Earl and he's like, no, I'm sorry, my brother called dibs on this situation. And I really hope that the reason is because we realized how fucking gross that was. As to people who have watched many Greg Garcia pilots that never became shows, looking at you, Super Clyde, you're the big one, buddy.
You always will be.
And you were made twice. They took the same script and did it twice, and they did not get rid of the fat phobia and the homophobia and stuff that was in there. So I don't know what they thought changed in 2 years from 2013 to 2015 when they did it the second time. But yeah.
No, they should have just held on to it until 2025. Then they would have been fine.
They'd be, well, I mean, like we were just talking about shifting gears. Nancy Travis, Tim Allen's wife from Last Man Standing, guest starred, and they kind of went on a Valentine's Day date. Like, it wasn't a date. They just wound up at the same coffee shop on Valentine's Day, and it was the coffee shop in the supermarket because he was waiting to pick up a prescription for his granddaughter. Like, the leaps and hoops they kept going through to make this thing make some semblance of sense within the world of the show was kind of crazy.
It's such a shame. Because, I love the relationship in that pilot between Kat Dennings and Sean William Scott. And the fact that it feels like they don't lean into that.
Oh, they leaned into it this Valentine's episode. Did you? Are you caught up with the show?
No, I've only ever watched the pilot because you had mentioned it and mentioned that it was a little rough. And I just had to see for myself because I love that. I love that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And you weren't wrong. It was a rough pilot.
Dude, it was such a rough pilot that they took the third episode and released it second. Because the second episode was just as rough. And the third episode had Brenda Song in it as a guest star, and it leans into, like you said, the Sean William Scott, Kat Denning of it all is leaned into because she sets him up on a date with Brenda Song, but then she's like, Brenda Song's like, but you need to come too so that it's not awkward. And then once we have a rapport, I'll get you out of there. I'll figure out a way to get you out of there. So like that whole thing, that was the second episode. And it references things that happened in the actual second episode. And it just felt weird. But when your pilot is so rough that clearly the one that you have time to figure out how to strengthen the show is the one that you show second instead of the second episode that you had already produced. That just indicates something to me. But Nancy Travis comes back, and they did, she's not going to be in the show all the time. They did a really nice line at the end where she's like, you're a nice guy, Matt, but you just reminded me of the last man I dated. But the joke that was made in the house, everybody's like, so they canceled Last Man Standing only to bring back Last Man Standing? I mean, it's the same joke that could have been made about Kevin Can Wait when they killed Aaron Hayes' character, only to turn Kevin Can Wait into King of Queens. CBS, why did you cancel King of Queens? And the fact of the matter is, we canceled it because it was too expensive to make, and it wasn't making us the money it once did. But now that time has passed, we'll definitely just bring back all the actors and create a new show. And you'll be happy about it. You'll thank us.
That is the idea, right?
Exactly.
It's not the worst idea. It's just the shitty way they went about it with having a whole first season with another person was awful.
Yes. Or with this. And then they only did that because Leah Remini wasn't available to be in that first season. Or she probably would have been the wife. Or from the beginning. It was weird timing with Kevin Can Wait. I don't know. But yeah, that's the thing. Of course, they have something that works, but when it gets too expensive, when the cost is not worth the gains anymore, and that's crazy because they canceled Last Man Standing at ABC when it was on the top, right? And it was on the top as a Friday night show. It was still doing numbers and making them money, airing at 8 o'clock on a Friday. Which is notoriously a
Tim
dead
Allen
zone.
said some dumb shit sometime on Fox, right?
Well, I don't know if it was necessarily that. I don't think the stuff he had said was part of the reason they canceled it. They had held out hoping that the production company would charge them less for episodes It's a very fascinating thing that happened with Last Man Standing. But then they're like, fine, we'll relent and whatever. And they're like, no, we're just not making the show anymore. And then Fox was able to buy it when ABC did it. And they had 2 more seasons of Last Man Standing. 3 more seasons? I think Last Man Standing had 8 seasons total. It was crazy. And they had lost
What are you
actors.
talking about, Devin? We don't let Tim Allen work anymore. That's what he tells me.
No, well, he's a liar.
On that show, on that fucking pilot, he has a rant about cancellation.
Yes. But that rant about cancellation is about Home Improvement getting canceled for the same reason.
No, sorry. I mean on switching gears, shifting
gears. Yes, yeah. The first episode he has that whole rant, but he does the same thing on Home Improvement too. You have something that's working, and then suddenly you're like, oh, it's not working like it used to. But it is working like it used to. You just don't want to pony up for the cost. That makes sense because it's a success. Like,
yeah, well, no,
he's done that
cast members start getting
times.
paid more because they have that kind of bargaining power, and so yeah, so you cancel the show and you do something else. But that's how this stuff works.
Yeah.
No, you know what I actually started diving into more was I went back into Grounded for Life because we talked about Richard Reel during our Sandler cast with Deuce Bigelow.
Again, Megan Price, love Megan Price.
Yeah, and it got me back to Grounded for Life for a bit.
I mean, that's probably one I've never watched all of it. Every episode I've seen, I've enjoyed. But I think once I finished My Name is Earl, I was very happy because Peep Show showed up on Hulu, and then I watched the first season of Peep Show, and I'm like, oh, I forgot how rough this show is. Like,
yeah, I mean,
and it's all about the time that it was made, but just so much of the like, I should be with Sophie. I've put in the time. Like, fuck you, Mark. I can listen to it.
But that is the one that they do that's all first person.
It's
right?
all
like,
first person, yeah. And it's
very
very interesting.
Yeah. See, I think technically it is much more interesting and much more important than I think any of the subject matter is, right? It's one of the reasons why I don't think it's a stellar show, but I do think it's an important show for us to like remember existed because it did something buck wild and succeeded for a while.
It's got 9 series. There's 40 9 times 6 is 54. There's 54 episodes. So like it's just one of those things where like the topic, because it's in the mid 2000s, like it takes some time before it just gets to the like, we can just be awkward bastards. We don't need to be awkward misogynistic bastards.
Yeah, it basically learned the lessons that I think around that same time is when Gavin and Stacey was on, and that show just didn't, which is why it kind of flopped out, and then James Corden ran off to the U.S. because everybody hated him over there.
Right. Now everybody hates him over here. And I know, Canada, have you accepted James Corden?
I'm pretty sure with our relationship with Canada right now, they would see that as an act of war, so I don't really want to push that.
Yeah, that's fair. I know that we have at least one Canadian listener, so that was my shout out to him. I had to talk in Celsius yesterday. I was all thrown off. But yeah, no, I guess the last thing that I want to say about the Tim Allen shifting gears and all of that is the fact that they're owned by Disney, right? ABC is a Disney broadcast company, and we know how Disney did all their shows, right? Like, are you familiar with that gross thing that they did? Like,
what gross thing are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the fact that like they would contract people for 3 seasons. You would get a contract for 3 seasons, and then when it came time for the 4th season, they would change the title of the show. It'd be the same show, but you'd get a new contract so that you didn't have to get a raise. Because, like, your contract was 3 seasons for, like, the sweet life of Zach and Cody. And then once it comes time for the 4th one, is like, well, okay, well, now it's Sweet Life on Deck, and you're still making the same amount of money, even though that original contract you signed, if we create a 4th season of The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, then you will get a raise. And technically it's a 4th season of it, but it's not called The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. So go fuck yourself.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff about that exact era of Disney that has really come to light recently, especially with some of the ways in which Raven Simone specifically has been very vocal about some stuff. I mean, in the realm of coming back and doing Raven's House, right, or whatever the name.
Raven's
of
House is the name of the sequel. Yeah.
Just what I was literally just watching her talk about some of this stuff this week because we watched We watched a really decently made, really well made, just dumb subject matter on HBO, documentary on HBO, the Miss Cleo documentary, Call Me Miss Cleo. I say dumb subject matter, but actually it turned out to be super interesting. Do you know like the whole story with her? Basically everything after the scam, because I knew up to the whole like
Yeah, I
being
don't know
brought into
anything after
court.
the scam, and the scam is just
Okay.
like crazy to me. Like
Well,
that
well, the
happened.
wild thing is that I kind of knew, but never really had the full specific details on. Is that so? For anybody that doesn't know, Miss Cleo was a psychic hotline in the '90s that you could call, right? And she was a person on screen. It was a woman putting on a supposedly fake Jamaican accent, actually doubt not known, not verified whether or not it's real or fake. Even in the documentary, they can't figure it out because it sure doesn't sound like a real one. And a bunch of the Jamaican specialists that they talk to, ethno studies, like people that they talk to are like, this woman's not Jamaican.
Ethnolinguistics.
Um, well, I mean, yeah, these people are not necessarily just like linguistic people,
Oh, I got you. I
but
understand.
they
Yeah.
talk to people that are like deeper into that kind of studying, and they're just like, this woman's clearly not. But also, everything she has shows that there was some possible truth to it. It was so that's one part of it that I had never known, that she was kind of had this like mysterious upbringing, right? And she would say, call me now, and you can, we'll do a tarot reading for you, and people would call their hotline, and it was $5 a minute. And then they're talking to people in the documentary that were like, yeah, our job was to keep people on the line as long as possible. And if they asked for Miss Cleo, who they were never going to actually talk to because they were going to do a tarot reading off of like a script that they had in front of them, but they were like, if they asked to talk to Miss Cleo, it was actually great because then they could say, oh yeah, let me put you on hold while I go look for her, and then just like go walk around and get coffee for 20 minutes. And like there's like, it was like awful, right? And this is what they end up getting brought into court for. But what they found out is that when they finally took a look at Miss Cleo's actual bank account and her contract, she was getting treated just as shitty as any of the people on the phone. She did like one promo for them and they paid her like $1,700, and then they ran it for the whole summer back in like the early 90s. Like that was just the one instance, right? They paid her, and they said they were paying her for her likeness and her voice, and then like paid her like you would pay a voice actor, like just
Yeah,
pennies
for the
on the
one
dollar
time.
type shit.
I only recorded
Yeah.
Meep once, and then they doubled it, bastards.
But yeah, dude, that's but like that's exactly what happened to her. And I had kind of known that she had been dropped from the lawsuit, because that's what happens is that she's named in the lawsuit, but then once they figure that out, they
That
drop
she
her
was
like
just
hot,
an actor. That she wasn't one of
yeah,
the people behind.
yeah, she
the
wasn't
scam.
anybody making any decisions. She was just doing this thing. And did she then it becomes a question of what are her ethics, and we'll never fucking know, right? But she had this whole second life afterwards as like an LGBT activist and shit like that. So like she had this whole other side of her life that I just didn't know anything about after that, and it was really really good and interesting. One of the big producers on it and one of the big voices in it is Raven Simone. She's fantastic, not only because of like the LGBT and the blackness of it all that she's celebrating, but also like one of her most famous bits on Raven was
that's so
her
Raven
doing a
was
Miss Cleo
that.
impression.
Yeah, she was a psychic. She literally could see the future. That was the driving high concept of That's So Raven, was that she had visions of the future.
Yeah, yeah. So like there was just it was a really fun documentary. Call Me Miss Cleo on HBO, and I highly recommend.
Cool. Very cool. I don't know how we got here. Oh, we were talking about Disney. I mean, we talk about, you say that like that era of Disney, they just did it with Girl Meets World. Like they
Did they?
changed the title for the 4th season of
What
Girl
is it
Meets
now?
World. I don't remember. The show's canceled. But like
Yeah,
if you
that's
look,
what I had thought. I
right.
didn't realize that it had gotten a 4th season and they'd renamed it. I just thought
Yeah,
it was done.
they've changed it. Maybe they changed it now. It's something. The title is changed from Girl Meets World. Like there's something more to it, or there's less to it. That
I wonder
is
if they did
very
try to do,
strange.
like,
But it's like, so that syndication, I don't think they have to pay out the same money to the people because they're not running it under the same title. Like it's all the gross Hollywood accounting that we sometimes point to on this show. That is,
yeah.
that is that factor. All right. I got 2 things to talk about, Sejin. Which one do you want to go with first? The one that's gross or the one that's unfinished?
Oh, let's go for the gross one, I guess.
You know what? I played him, ladies and gentlemen. I definitely played him. Just like Coke played me when I tried this orange cream Coca-Cola. It don't really taste orange or creamy. It's a little bit of a disappointment.
It's got a little weird other taste, though. Like,
Yeah.
I can't quite put my finger on it. It's not that it tastes like just regular Coke, but it also doesn't taste like orange cream.
Yeah, it tastes citrusy, but it's not specifically orange citrus. Is the way that I would like put it if I had to put it into words. I don't know.
It's like one step to the left of the old lemon, right? Didn't they do a lemon?
Yeah, they had
for
it was lemon Diet Coke, but yes, yeah, it's like it's in that same vein. It's not as good. So the gross thing, and it sucks because it started with such high hopes, is the fact that Cobra Kai ended this past week, right? The last episodes came to Netflix on the 13th of February. Cobra Kai has officially ended, which meant I was completely blown away by the Karate Kid Legends trailer I saw before Captain America Brave New World. Had
you not seen it yet?
I had not seen the trailer yet. So
it's so good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's super good. And that's the whole thing. That's the other thing relating to the Super Bowl, just to like put a button on that one, is the fact that they don't buy full commercials anymore. They buy the minimum that they can and then shove you towards a YouTube video. Like the Dun Kings one
that came out.
Yeah. Or, like Fantastic Four, go online to see the trailer now. Thunderbolts, go online to see the trailer now. Smurfs, go online to see the trailer now.
Fantastic Four was an even wilder one. It turned into a little bit of a weird little like one-step ARG. Did you know that?
No, I did not. I just
I
saw
went to the website.
Oh, okay. Please, sorry.
No, yeah, you saw the ad, right? You saw the
But I didn't see the ad during the Super Bowl. It was before the Super Bowl. The only movie teasers I saw during the Super Bowl were Thunderbolts and Smurfs. That was it.
Well, so if you went to that webpage for the Fantastic Four, I'm not sure what they were trying to get at in doing this, but if you went to that webpage, it actually was a 404 error, but it was clearly a very stylized one, right? Because it has Herbie on it and stuff like that. So it's not a real 404 error. And if you look for more than 2 seconds, you'll see a blatant QR code hidden on Herbie's design. So you then scan the QR code and then that went to the trailer. I don't know what the fucking point of that step was. It's the weirdest thing.
They get detail when you scan. I have videos and things that I watch on YouTube where they have a QR code, and if you scan the QR code, they get a little notification on the screen that says the code has just been scanned. So if they could tell that the code has been scanned, I'm sure they're grabbing all your information at that time.
Sure. It's not even necessarily the QR thing, because QR codes on movie posters and on movie advertising has been a thing for over a decade.
Over a decade, yeah.
I don't know why they turned it into a mystery. Because if my mom or dad went to that website and they saw a 404 error, it wouldn't occur to them that things didn't look right. They would just think, it's broken, and then go somewhere else.
It's because it's a Fantastic Four, Sejin. It's a Fantastic 404 error. So we're going to lean into it. That's the whole point.
It was a very weird choice on their part, but yeah, the short little mini commercial trying to lead you to the bigger commercial available on YouTube is definitely a thing.
Yeah. But that's all the Super Bowl is. Also, all the Super Bowl ads were talked about on the morning shows. We're going to show the Harry and Met Sally one where they're back in the deli and Hellman's gives her an orgasm, a for real orgasm. Frankenstein would be forgiven for mistaking that for her, being in love with Harry in the deli. It is one of those situations where they showed that and then talked about the making of that commercial, and it's so why are you spending millions of dollars to air this during the Super Bowl when you're getting everything else from it? And all that everything else is because of that money that you're investing to show it during the Super Bowl. But my father had seen all of the ads, and he's it's really not as much fun because none of them are new, so it's not fun to watch them.
Yeah.
And I'm it's content you've already seen. And they're happy about it, that you've already seen it, but it took something away from your experience watching the Super Bowl. Anyway,
I will also say that there's a lot of people out there like you and I that are not necessarily invested in watching live television as much, right?
Right.
You a little bit more than me, but you were more likely to watch it after recorded or things like that, right?
Yeah.
So I might not have ever seen these commercials. I get that your dad, who watches a lot more live television than I do, would be invested in a way that would he's the right audience to see this stuff early. A lot of the people watching the Super Bowl specifically aren't necessarily.
That's a good point, because they're at a party and it's when he's this is boring. I don't have the escape that the commercials usually bring, and I'm that's
there's
so
also
weird, right?
There's also Yeah, but there's also a second viewing factor with a new audience. Like, so, like, if I saw the Fantastic Four commercial earlier in the day and then saw something during the Super Bowl, I might not be watching that commercial now because I already saw it, but I am going to turn to you sitting next to me and say, "Did you see this earlier?" And then we're going to talk about it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So that's the whole thing. But yeah, so I saw the Karate Kid Legends, and I knew that that was coming. And big fan of the original trilogy. The second one is still the best Karate Kid movie. I will fight me if you have to. But Dale has only ever seen the first three. She has not seen the next Karate Kid, and she had not seen, and neither of us had seen what I'm going to call the Kung Fu Kid. Because they were going to call it the Kung Fu Kid. But then Jerry Weintraub's like, no, you got to use the Karate Kid because that's got the name recognition. We know he's not doing karate, but people will see it if we call it the Karate Kid. So we sat down.
I'll be honest, is the fact that you haven't seen that one yet or hadn't seen that one yet?
I've seen it now, yeah.
Yeah, because I think it might be my favorite out of all of them.
I think it's weird. Well, we're going to talk about it, right? So what we did after Brave New World is we sat down and we watched the next Karate Kid and the 2010 Karate Kid, the 2010 Karate Kid with Jackie Chan. You're right, it's a really, really good movie. The weird thing about it is that it feels so much like it's trying to be different from the first movie. And then the moments that happen that are literally just lifted from the first film, it gives it this weird, like, sort of knockoff feeling because yeah.
It's also saccharine as hell. Like,
definitely
extremely sappy, and like, I don't mind that, especially because it's a kids movie. Because that's the thing is that, like, I saw the Karate Kid movies when I was young, and they were movies that I wanted to watch. And yeah, my parents wanted to make sure the first couple of times that I saw one or two of them that I think that they weren't something I shouldn't be watching. But beyond that, I was the one watching those movies, right? So when they made The Karate Kid in 2010, I was sat down and watched that movie at that point, I would have been 23, 24 years old, right? And I was just like, this movie feels overly sweet and overly gentle, but also this is exactly what I would want to then put in front of a 10-year-old, right? This is exactly the kind of movie. It's a little, they feel like they're getting away with watching like an action movie, but it's really just the gentlest landing of an action movie it could possibly be.
I mean,
so like I was super on board with that, just kind of like because of the nostalgia factor.
I agree. That is definitely it is the most, like, before Cobra Kai existed, I'd say it's the most graphic in its violence. Like, you feel some of the hits that Dre takes in that movie. And they're like, it's a kid. It's a little kid. And the way that, like, the fighting dragons treat him in that movie is, like, scary. Like, it looks like it's another 12-year-old trying to murder him. Like, making him 12 was a good choice, but it feels vicious, that movie.
We have a friend that saw that movie with me, and he swore up and down it was the best one simply because it was the only one with an actual kid in it.
And that's a good point. I can get behind whoever would say that. It wasn't me. I will say that because I just saw it for the first time. I liked it. I think the issue is the other issue, aside from the fact that, like, when the Karate Kid moments happen, and I'm talking the 1984 moments of the Karate Kid happen in the film, like, it weirdly kind of takes you out of it if you're somebody who's very familiar with the original trilogy. And I just had that happen in the episodes of Cobra Kai, because they recreated the scene from the second movie where Miyagi gets the registered letter. They recreated that whole sequence, and I'm like, oh, it's like the Karate Kid 2 sequence. And then one of the other people watching, I'm not gonna remember who it was like, that was weird. Like, why did they just do that? And I'm like, it was literally a scene from the movies recreated. And they're like, oh, the acting was terrible. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but that's what they were trying to do. And you not even knowing that it was from the movie, like, you're like, this was weird. And then watching it like that and thinking about it, that's exactly what it felt like watching the Karate Kid with Jackie Chan. I also don't think that the payoff with the jacket is as rewarding as wax the car, paint the fence, and sweep and sand the floor. Like, it's cool when it happens and you see it, but there's still so much more training that has to happen. Where, like, when Miyagi says to Daniel, all right, now, paint the fence. And, like, he does it. He doesn't need to be guided. Yeah. Like,
I think in the meta of it all, though, I really appreciated the jacket because, as I famously once said, if Jackie Chan had a Soul Calibur, it would just be a step ladder, right?
Yeah.
Like his like art form with engaging with martial arts is not just a master of kung fu, which he clearly is, but also the utilization of just prop work in film is just beyond amazing, and in fight choreography specifically is what I'm getting at. And so, in a weird way, it's the least kind of Karate Kid as a movie like thing that they could do, because it's really bringing in the Jackie Chan in that moment of him like teaching him to use this thing as like I understand exactly what you're saying. It doesn't have the same on film impact that like the original thing did, especially because that's now been around for 30 years, so like we know.
Right. All I was thinking of is parodies of it and other things that have used it. And
but I really adore that moment because I think it was like watching Jackie Chan like passing on something like that to have we mentioned the fact that it's like
it's Jaden Smith? Yeah,
it's Jaden Smith. Yeah,
and he looks so much like his dad, though I don't.
It's honestly the best movie I think he ended up ever making.
I think so. I mean, as someone who remembers After Earth, no. I mean, I really liked it, and I think the climb to the Dragon Well and that scene, like the stuff that happens, but it's moving at this really nice clip. And then, like, they add a bunch to it that, like, fleshes out the story. But it takes a 90-minute movie and makes it 2 hours and 20 minutes long. And you're just like, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot that you added there that I don't know if it really added anything to the story or if it just kind of, like, it didn't feel as natural, the flow of the film, if that makes sense.
No, yeah.
Like
I mean, that's where a lot of the saccharine shit I'm talking about really comes in, because you're talking about talking about Jackie Chan's backstory and stuff, right?
No, that scene was excellent. And that scene happens in The Karate Kid. There's the night where Miyagi gets drunk. And so, like, it was that scene where, like, Dre gets there and Dale's like, oh, God, what's going to happen? And I'm like, it's the drunk Miyagi scene. That's what we're about to see. But then that whole scene is, like, way better than the drunk Miyagi scene. If you're going to compare those scenes
Jackie
against
Chan
each other.
Acting in that moment was one of the first times I thought about, like, oh, I think I actually like Jackie Chan as an actor. Like, not just a fighter. Like, It's not like I watch a Jackie Chan.
He acts the shit out of that. And the idea of that his personal health, spoilers for the 2010 Karate Kid, that he dedicates every year to repairing a car to destroy that car because of the grief he is still experiencing, having lost his wife and child in a car accident while he was driving, is like, oh my God, I was a mess. I was a freaking mess. That scene really worked for me. It's more stuff with like Dre and the little violin player, Mei Lin,
okay.
where like, I'm like it was cute when they went to the festival together because it felt very reminiscent of when he takes Allie to the mini golf course, right? Like there were moments that worked, but then like the whole, my parents don't want me to see you anymore. And then like, I can't believe you were late getting to her audition. And he's like, I still got here in time for the audition and they had a car. Like, she can't be upset with me because of that. Like, they try to play it off as like, maybe you'll be on time for our fight at the tournament. And it's like, I saw her audition. What are you talking about, jerk kid? And then apparently the Chinese version, which I now would love to seek out the Chinese version of this film, positions Dre as an antagonist. Like, it is literally the Barney Stinson idea of it, that Daniel-san is the villain and Johnny is the hero. Like, apparently that's what the Chinese version does, is make him this, like, he's an interloper from another place. Yeah, right? Like that. Weird. Yeah, weird. I mean, the more important thing to say, right, is that the next Karate Kid is the movie I think our country needs right now. That movie's really good. I forgot how good the next Karate Kid is.
Is that the Hilary Swank
That's
one?
the Hilary Swank one, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Ironside as the Kreese character, the fact that the Alpha Elite are essentially Nazis is like kind of crazy.
I mean, we've talked before about how I just thought I didn't know there was a Karate Kid 2 and 3 until like you and I started talking about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like at that point I was like, wait, I thought it was Karate Kid, next Karate Kid. And you were like, no, there's two other movies.
There are two other movies in the Daniel-san saga. The Miyagi-verse incorporates all four of them. That's from the creators of Cobra Kai, though I'll let people see it. But I mean, watching that one and like the fact how she's standing up for herself and why she is standing up for herself, like that movie really works. Plus, you got a young Walt Goggins in it. I got everything I needed out of watching The Next Karate Kid in 2025. 31 years later, fuck, from when it was released. I'm like, I hope there's some actor in this that like is now big and I love. And there's Walt Goggins.
Nice.
Yeah. So we watched those. And again, Next Karate Kid, if you've never seen it or if you only saw it at the time, it's aged really well and become weirdly more relevant. And the Jackie Chan one is good. Like, I don't know why people are so shitty about it, right? It is the one that has made the most money. There's a reason why they're going to do a sequel that has him meeting Daniel LaRusso. And I don't know if Cobra Kai is ever going to have happened or if it's going to be another timeline. I'm serious about that. I do not know after watching it. But then I watched Cobra Kai. I watched the last season of Cobra Kai. And Sijin, if you had to point at Sony and say you have one glaring issue that I personally have a problem with, what do you think you would tell Sony their one glaring issue is?
The studio interference.
Well, studio interference is a pretty good one. I'm going to say it is the puppeting of fucking corpses.
Oh, yeah.
Because they did it really good in the first two parts of season 6 because they're trying to tell a Mr. Miyagi story. They did stuff in the past. So someone playing a young Miyagi does not bother me, right? Because you can I have no problem. I would watch a movie about young Spangler right now. I would watch a young Egon Spengler show right now and see how he met Peter and how he met, Dan Aykroyd's Ray Stantz is his name. Like, I'd like to see that. I think that would be interesting. And I don't mind if you cast someone else to play him. I do mind if you cast Harold Ramis to play Harold Ramis and Harold Ramis is dead, right? Like, Prince and I have not seen eye to eye on a lot of things because personally I do think that Morris Day and the Time were a pretty fly fucking band. That being said, Prince's whole don't ever let them make a hologram of me. I have a lot of respect for him for saying that because they did a puppet Miyagi in the 13th episode of season 6 of Cobra Kai and it was hard to watch. Because up until that point, they had been respectful of it. They did it in ways of like, we found writing or we reused scenes from the other movie that like you understand now when Miyagi learned that lesson that he imparted onto you based on the stuff. But having Daniel have a scary dream where the skeleton Cobra Kai's attack him and Miyagi comes and they fight back to back. Like, it was clearly a stunt double for Mr. Miyagi during that stuff. The wig was applied so poorly. It was very noticeable.
Maybe they thought they could get away with it, though, because it was a dream sequence.
But then it was moments, like, of a dream Miyagi talking to him. I mean, even whatever their justification of, I still have a problem with it personally.
Yeah, no.
And it is mostly... I was
trying to find some loophole, but I couldn't find anything that would make me feel good about that.
And then it's like, and as a dream sequence, it doesn't need to be Miyagi. Right? It could be a sound-alike, or it could be a photo of him. It doesn't need to be like a standing there Mr. Miyagi that he's having a conversation.
It could be the younger actor that's been playing him in flashbacks. It could just be a young Miyagi.
Yeah.
And we'd have some weird conversations about why does Daniel have this image of young Miyagi in his head, but that would be a much easier conversation and more fun for us to have than talking about what they did.
Well, I mean, the reason is because he's been learning about Mr. Miyagi and when he first came to America, and he's been seeing photos of him that he never saw before. And now, like, that's what he's thinking of as Miyagi because he's like, I never thought of him in this way. and now it's a young. There's 100 justifications for it, but it just seems to be Sony work that we watch where they are so free with like, yeah, no, it's an actor who's dead, but we can do whatever we fucking want with their image. Like,
I wonder if there's something in the contracting with Sony. Like, I wonder if they're one of the first and strongest adopters of putting that kind of shit in contracts for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Disney famously started kind of being like, hey, we want to scan your whole likeness in once they kind of got into the whole Marvel universe, everything is done on a green screen type filming, right? So like they've had that for a while as well. We learned about some of the grosser parts of that with everything going on with like Black Widow and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if Sony has had that shit in its stuff, because coming from a tech company first and then being a movie company, did they see something down the line and start getting rights for people from all the way back in like the fucking 90s, right?
Well, I would imagine that if they're smart, if you're Sony and you're smart, the second that the mom dies on The Sopranos, the actor who plays the mom, I can't think of her name right now, and I feel terrible about that. And then what they recreated her so that they could have that one final scene with her, and then she dies, right? Like that last scene with her was her dying, essentially, in a way to cover that up. Like, if you're a forward-thinking company, which Sony, being a tech company first, would definitely qualify, then you start thinking about, how do we want to handle this so that if this ever happens? Because, like, you think about that is almost 30 years ago that the actor who played Tony's mom, I'm going to look it up because I feel bad not being able to say her name while we're talking about this.
Right.
Like,
so that's so many years ago, right? But we know that they seem to have some agreement to do it with Ramis. We know that they seem to be able to be okay with doing it here at Cobra Kai. So, like, if you look at the ways in which they've been utilizing it with older stuff, or maybe they're the only ones that are pushing their luck on saying, hey, they didn't sign contracts saying, don't do this.
Right. I don't know. It's just so... It just makes me feel uncomfortable. Nancy Marchand as Livia Soprano. And her passing away and then being reused. Like, and that was in 99. So if you're thinking forward, I don't know. It bothers me. And like, other than that, Cobra Kai was pretty satisfying. They've written it in a way that if they are not referenced in Karate Kid Legends, then it won't feel like too out of it, because they kind of shut the book on the whole storyline of it. It's enjoyable. I'm glad that we were able to finish it before we recorded the show, but yeah, I could not shake just the way I felt when it's like, did you really need to do this? You guys had like worked around it in ways that were pretty okay. Like, even the stunt double fighting was fine, right? Like, I'm okay with that. You recast it. If he's not saying anything, like, you did your best. Clearly it's not him based upon the wig work that you did. But
right. Well,
right, like, I don't have a problem. Like, yeah, also in Ghostbusters Afterlife, I don't have a problem with the person physically playing an older Egon before he dies in the beginning of the movie. We don't ever see his face. He's not given anything to do or say. That it is specifically spoilers for Ghostbusters Afterlife when it is his ghost at the end of the movie, and that's Harold Ramis's likeness that they just turned into a ghost. That bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
And like, even then, like, I feel like that, like, he's a ghost, so like he looks like cold and there's things like that, where Miyagi just looked like Pat Morita was on the screen again, and that was weird. Morita, I don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah. So now for the unfinished thing, because I was trying to finish, but I didn't get there. CJ, do you know how I like Metal Slug?
Yes.
You know how I like Metroidvanias?
Okay.
What if they combined Metal Slug and Metroidvania to create a Metalvania?
I mean, what is the big thing for Metal Slug that you'd be pulling in, right? Is it just like the awesome art style?
So the art style is definitely a big part of it. Also, you get mech suits that are reminiscent of being in the Metal Slug tank.
Nice.
The game is called Guns of Fury. It released this past, the same day as the Cobra Kai stuff. So February 13th. I have beaten 10 bosses, and I've seen about 80% of the map at this point. Like, I really thought I was going to be done with it before we recorded. I've been playing since 6 o'clock this morning, in addition to the time I put in beforehand. I did not think Metal Slug would work as well as a Metroidvania sort of explore a giant map and backtrack game as it does. I guess the other thing is that
it is about having a mech and upgrading it seems like a pretty reasonable tool.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's definitely the mech in Metal Slug 2. When you're climbing the tower, you fight the boss in a mech at the start. And if you can hold on to it, you beat the boss in the mech. I haven't found a tank yet. I found 3 different versions of mechs. So it kind of feels a little reminiscent of, like, the Mega Man X series. Specifically the third game, where you can get different mechs that give you different abilities. Because, like, Mech 1 is just strong. It's like the power lifter from Aliens. When you can push heavier boxes and things like that. The second mech it can fly. It has a jetpack. So, like, it's how the first way that you're able to traverse vertically is when you get the keys to activate those mechs. I have the keys for the third type of mech. I still have not been able to find it. And right before this, I found the fourth mech, which has laser swords. So it can, like, actually cut through doors and barriers. So it's getting that.
I love that
through.
The in-game narrative reason is that you're stealing mech.
You're stealing mechs, yeah. It's super cool. It works. And then, like, there's also still the Metroidvania stuff of, like, now you can climb walls, now you can wall jump, now you can double jump. Like, it has been really interesting. And then it's got the Metal Slug, like, the weaponry. Because, like, that's a big part of it, too. Like, the heavy machine gun, shotgun, Iron Weasel. Like, so you find those guns.
I have a clarification question.
Yeah.
Do you have to be... So are the mechs upgrading, or do you have to change mechs to do different things?
You have to bring the right mech to the situation. And there's generally, like at the beginning of a room, you'll have that mech, but then sometimes it's keeping that mech alive. Like, there's a whole thing with the flying mech where, like, there are anti-aircraft guns, and if you can't keep the mech alive, you can still progress, but you won't be able to pick up, like, an item that's at the end of the level. And there's no way to upgrade the mech. It's just the mech is the set. But you do get the ability to, like, repair them. You can get, like, engine oil to heal their little mech life bar and things like that.
But then, like, are there, like, home bases that you can go to trade up when you want to? Or is it just, like,
not for the mechs. The mechs are... So far, the mechs are what you see is what you get from each mech. Okay. And they also do have... a projectile attack, each of the versions. Even though I focus on, like, the first one is a power lifter, like, it has, like, a shoulder-mounted grenade launcher, so you can launch, like, grenades.
Lose a mech,
yeah,
can you go back and just go where you found it to get it again?
Yeah.
Or does it go back to a
it's like there are depots where the mechs, so that the soldiers can do it, and then each soldier is issued, like, a key fob that basically does it. So, yeah. But, like, if you go back to that, you can only pick the mech that is assigned to that location. Like, it's not it's not like Mega Man X3, where once you find a mech pad, any of the mech chips you have, you can create that mech.
Wild. Okay, so there is definitely some strategy you have to employ and really be thinking
to make sure you can keep them alive and get them where they need to go. It's cool. But and then, like, just all of the weapons that you pick up, like, you have your sidearm, like a pistol, and I've got, like, 8 different pistols. So you always have that, and that has unlimited ammo. And then you have the, like, Metal Slug style, like, rifles and things that you pick up that do have an ammo system. And you need to make sure that your ammo bar is full so that you can continue to use them. And it's really interesting. Like, it's an interesting way to do that. And it gets rid of you don't die in one hit, right? Like, that's another big thing about Metal Slug. You have a health bar. It starts small, and you have to pick things up to make yourself have more health. And even then, like I said, I'm as far in the game when I found almost everything that I could have found up to this point. And I think I only have, like, 150 health points. But the game is reasonable, right? Like, I don't think there are bosses who can kill you in one hit. But, you know, Siegen, if I got hit with a death ray from a giant tank, that would probably kill me in one hit. But, you know, like, if I get punched, it only does 13 damage. So it works out. It's one of the fairest life bar systems I think I've ever experienced in a video game like this.
Yeah, I mean balance is key, right?
Yeah.
With this stuff, this is where it always gets me is that when you get into the get good gamers where it's like, no, this is just an unbalanced game. Like it's not that's not fun. You need it to be well maintained.
The balance is fun. And like there's never been a boss where I'm like, I'm not going to be able to beat this. It's always like, okay, so using the gun that takes 5 seconds between each shot, that was killing me because I wasn't doing enough DPS. Let's switch over to the pulse rifle and beat this boss. And there's been some interesting challenges and puzzles to solve. My favorite is you had to get a sword for a king statue in order to open up a secret passageway that led to the prison. But even getting that sword, like it was a pressure switch, so you had to push a statue to the right part of the floor to activate the door, but that statue can also be destroyed. So once you push it there are enemies who could destroy that, so you could get stuck on the other side of the door if you don't go fast enough. it was like, I'm like, oh, fuck. Like really interesting stuff. And I play these games all the time. I play Metroidvania style games all the time. This one has really been a breath of fresh air. I want to try different weapons. And while I do generally go back to the revolver because it's 20 damage and it does piercing, so like shields and stuff don't matter, it's slow, but it's like Mega Man slow. And I play a lot of Mega Man, so it doesn't really bother me. But then I got one that was just as slow but did a bit more damage, and I'm like, yeah, I'll switch over to that gun. Like I liked the revolver a lot, but the Luger is essentially the same thing as the revolver but with 2 more points of damage per hit. And that could be the difference between life and death in a game like this.
Yeah. No, I mean it's cool. It's got you thinking about the equipment that you've got. I mean, much like a good Metroidvania should, is like keeping an eye on the map, keeping an eye on the gear you got, and making sure that you can make it.
Yeah. So it's been great, and I'm a little upset I wasn't able to finish before the show, but it seems like it's got like the secret stuff to access, and it's like a full-on Metroidvania, and it's one that I literally only found out about because like Twitter, I was scrolling through Twitter, and they're like, the company Gelato Games who released it is like, our game comes out in 3 days. If you like Metal Slug or Metroidvanias, you should probably check it out. And I'm like, well, I like both those things, so either I will hate it, as they're like, we can't please people from both parties, or I will absolutely love it. And I think here's the strongest thing for a Metroidvania to me, is if you can do things out of order, if there's not really a sequence, if you can break that sequence and still be having a good time, that is a good Metroidvania. And the fact that I defeated the 9th and 10th boss before defeating the 8th boss, that tells me that, this is a good game. It also explains why the 10th boss gave me so much trouble. Because there were 2 more bosses I should have beaten before him. But I beat him. Nice. I definitely beat him first. And it felt really good. But then I'm like, oh, 9th boss? I didn't fight the 9th boss? What happened? But yeah, so Guns of Fury, it's on Steam and Nintendo Switch right now. I don't know if it's going anywhere else, but like that pretty much covers everybody, right? By being on Steam and Nintendo Switch. I know that PlayStation and Xbox are not part of that conversation, but like almost everybody, like Siegen said, your PC is for work, but it can also game. And I'm doing it on exactly what Siegen described, like a Twin Lake Intel. And I'm able to play this game without problem. It is going to be my farewell to that before I upgrade. I think I'll do my New Game Plus on the upgraded one and see how that affects it.
So, I mean, according to the news this week with Xbox isn't part of anybody's conversation right now. So.
Oh, why? What happened with Xbox that is not part of anybody's conversation?
Worst year of sales in basically 2024 was a huge disappointment year, and it was historically bad for them. They are bottom of the list currently, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to claw out of it before the next generation.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the next generation, I mean, is Nintendo Switch 2 going to be considered? It's just going to be Gen 9, right? Like, it's not a Gen 10 console.
Remember the Switch? The Switch was always kind of not considered to be on par with the PlayStation and the Xbox, right? So it was kind of left out of a lot of conversations early on because of that. And so I imagine the same thing is going to happen with this. Although I will argue that by the end of the Switch's life, it has definitely proven itself to be, for most games currently coming out, it's doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a Gen 8 console, but it was like not released at the same time as the PS4 and the Xbox Xbox One. So we waited a couple of years before they dropped the Nintendo Switch. So it's still technically in that console generation. But but if the Switch 2 is not going to be the start of Generation 10, it's going to be released 5 years into Gen 9.
I don't know, man.
It's the weirdest stuff.
Always gets us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We say like, oh, Nintendo can't do this or won't do that, and then all of a sudden they turn around and do, and it's just like, all right, fine.
Well, I'm excited. I mean, April 2nd is going to be a big day when we finally get that Direct. Though I imagine we'll probably see a Pokemon Direct sometime this month too. Those are just, predictions from me the fact that it is Pokemon right now, right? You can go to McDonald's, you can get Pokemon cards, maybe.
If they're not selling them out the back door, yeah.
Right. All right. So I know that you have a hard out. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I think that we've covered a lot of solid stuff this episode.
No, I've got some stuff I've been playing too, but I am still like deep in it. So like we can talk about it. It will come up in next episodes and things.
Right. And I will have you don't need to remind me, but I will definitely have read through all of AMC's Stubbs stuff so that we can talk about if you can see the same movie multiple times. Because if not, then there's no value to joining it right now, other than their value of, well, you didn't pay for your ticket, so you'll definitely buy the popcorn and soda that is direct profit into our pockets. Which is where it comes from, and that makes sense. Because the whole hope for MoviePass was like, yeah, they're not going to be spending the money, so they're going to buy concessions. And clearly it worked, because now every movie theater, as Sejin has pointed out, has their own version of MoviePass.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. With that, if you want to keep the conversation running, you can join us in our Discord. Invitations are available wherever we are on the socials, which right now is Facebook and X, formerly Twitter. If you look at our profiles, there's an invitation link, and you can join the Discord and continue the conversation. You can also get a, specialized invitation if you send an email to thussayreport@gmail.com. And we'll get back to you. You can also just correspond with us via email. And if it's for myself, Devin Decker, or him, Stephen Sarwick, just put our name in the subject line, and we will make sure that it's for their eyes only, whoever you put in the subject line. So we can rock it like it's Y2K, and we can just correspond via email. It's not just for the office anymore. But with all of that said, thanks for joining us, and William, please bring us home. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Sarwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.